Hello, I'm April Jones, and we at Jones Law Firm care about you, your family, and your well-being. That's why we've put together this informative webinar series to answer your questions about life, about the law, about your family. So thank you for joining us, and let's get started. Let me just get started. My name is April Jones, Jones Law Firm PC. We haven't done a webinar in a while, so I will introduce you to my panel, which is our amazing attorneys that we have here at Jones Law Firm, or 4 of them. It's like 14 of us, but we are here today to answer your questions. So I've been an attorney, gosh, since 1992. So over 30 years. We've had Jones Law Firm for 23 years in Colorado. We currently do family law exclusively, and we are here to talk and to help you and to answer your questions so you can get through the holidays smoothly. So let's go around the room. We'll have our attorneys briefly introduce themselves, say how long you've been attorney, and maybe a favorite holiday or family tradition. We won't have our guests be on camera, but you can talk in the chat. We've got your questions ahead of time, and you can ask more questions while we're going. So I will start with a favorite holiday tradition. This is a little corny, but I like that Christmas movie where the guy, he's the banker, and then he loses the money, and then he finds an angel. What is the name of it? It's not White Christmas. We watch it every year. With Jimmy
Jimmy Stewart.
Jimmy Stewart, yes. So we watch that every year over and over, the whole family. So that's us. All right, why don't we go next to Grant?
Good afternoon. I'm Grant Bursick. I'm one of the senior attorneys here. I think my favorite family tradition over the holidays is I cook Christmas dinner pretty much every year for my entire family.
Wow. They don't have to bring anything?
Just the credit card.
Wow. Can I be in your family?
Anytime.
All right, next we have Billy Skinner.
Hi, my name is Billy Skinner. I've been practicing law about 16 years, and my favorite holiday tradition is my sons and I always watch the movie Elf.
Oh.
We love Will Ferrell and Elf.
Yes. He is funny. All right, Haley Hollins.
Hi, my name is Haley Hollins. I've been an attorney since 2016, and I've exclusively ever practiced family law. My favorite holiday tradition has got to be my husband and I usually load up with the dog and go out looking at Christmas lights with hot cocoa, and that's something I always look forward to.
Nice. Okay, well, let's jump right in. Let's start with some of our top tips for the holidays. We actually have a JLF holiday guide with our top tips. So I think you can just put some information in the chat, or we can send you the guide if you express interest. We'd love to get that in your hands. Okay, so number one, this is one of the number ones we came up with. Put your kids first this holiday season by trying to foster a healthy co-parenting relationship. It's all about the best interest of the child. That's the standard in court. That's the standard the judge will apply. And it's actually, I mean, even if you're not in a court situation, it works out if you can do that yourself, which is, put your child's best interest top of mind. So it is in your child's best interest for you to demonstrate a healthy co-parenting relationship and for you to do it as best you can. So let's talk about some definitions before we jump into questions. So one question is, what is co-parenting? Grant, why don't you start us off with what is co-parenting?
Co-parenting is generally a situation where you and your partner are raising your child or children together, but you are not living in the same household. So happens often after divorce, or if the parties were never married and are no longer living together.
Why is it something that people need to be more mindful of during the holiday season? Why are we talking about co-parenting right now?
Well, during the holidays, if you're not all living in the same household, there's going to be a lot of competing desires for attention, especially with the children. And ultimately, the holidays are really, especially when you have kids, about them. And if you let sort of your conflict with your former partner spill over, you can unintentionally, ruin your holidays for your kids, which is, I don't think, what anyone wants to do.
Right. And if you do it over and over, you'll ruin it for like their lifetime, their youth.
That's
And
correct.
when they think back on the holidays, they'll think back on the disagreement and the conflict, and that's not what you want. So we're here today to like give some tips to kind of make this easier. So one of the questions we have is, can parents come to a holiday agreement that is different from what the court orders say? So, what do you think, Haley? Can they do that?
Well, absolutely. A lot of times in the best of situations, the court orders can be guides for parents if you agree to do something different than that order. A couple caveats to that. Agree is the most important word, is that if there's no agreement and you've got a court order, that court order is going to be binding. But if you all have come to some other arrangement of splitting up days that's best for your family, it's best to make that agreement in writing with the other parent. And if you both can follow that and that works for your family, that's an acceptable solution.
And even if you end up having it in a text chain where you say this is what you agree to, that is 100% better than nothing when things go awry. I mean, email and a confirmation is a good start, especially for the holidays. If you're doing some one-off stuff, like it says you're supposed to have Christmas at noon every Christmas, but your grandma's going to be in town, and so you want to let them have them on, a different day. And just having that in writing, so things go awry, you can see very clearly that the two of you did some sort of back and forth about, hey, how about we do this? And the other person said, sure, that's great.
Absolutely.
Now, another tip we have is to make a schedule for holiday parenting time, whether you have a court-ordered parenting schedule or not. So if you don't have a court order, so if you have a court order, typically you will have a holiday parenting schedule. Now, this tip is if you don't have a court order, let's say you've never gone to court, but you are co-parenting and you're trying to figure out how to manage two separate households and children. Create your own parenting schedule. If you create a holiday parenting schedule, it's the same thing as if the court did it, except you're doing it voluntarily, and it helps you plan out what you're going to do. So that's one way to get through the holidays, not hire a lawyer, not get into a costly court case in the short term, and getting through the holidays with peace. Why, and then this will be for Billy, here's a question. Why is it important for separated parents to figure out a holiday parenting schedule for the kids?
Well, and I'm speaking from experience because I'm a divorced parent. It's super important for the children to know what to expect and to help manage their expectations, to know who they're with when, whose house they're going to be at when Santa Claus shows up, things of that nature, what grandparents are going to spend time with. And those things are really important to the kids. And one thing that I've found important is to think about it like the child would. Like we have calendars and everything's through our phone and all that. Little children don't have that. They just have what's at the top of their mind. And so them having a schedule, or maybe even create a calendar like for the refrigerator that says who's where during the holiday season, can be really helpful.
Oh, that's good. And that actually can come up if you're trying to figure out parenting your grandparenting, because we get cases where grandparents are trying to get parenting time because they're unable to get parenting time directly from the parents. For grandparents, if you can work with the parents, I mean, obviously that's best for your entire family, it's best for you. And you can end up in the same kind of situation that Billy is solving for, which is you want to see the grandkids, but you can't, or the other grandparents get more access than you do. And how do you put your grandchildren first so that you're not creating conflict, even when you're 100% in the right, because you are getting left out. Any tips for that, Billy?
I think it's just communication and communication, the key to that being civil and working ahead. Anything that's last minute is probably going to create more stirred up emotions. But if you plan it out, say, for example, it's about to be Thanksgiving. If you haven't already planned your Christmas or holiday season, then start now.
Yeah. And one thing you could do, I've seen parents do this when you've got step parents, you've got multiple families, one person may have more control. Let's just say it was the mom and the mom's mom, and the mom's side of the family having more control over who gets the best day or who has first choice. What you could do is just let go of the rope. I had a couple once, clients, and they just let go of the rope. They said, you pick when you want Thanksgiving, and we will have Thanksgiving. We'll just have a made up day for Thanksgiving. And that way there was no conflict. They had the full turkey, the dressing, everything for the kids. And then they did the same thing for Christmas. They just made up a day for Christmas. Let's say it was the 27th or the 23rd. It's outside of the area of conflict. They could have all of their kids, their joint parent children, their children that they each had separately, because nobody's competing for those days. And that became their holiday family tradition forever. And what you saw when people do that is they have just removed themselves from the fight, from the fray, and they can go all in with all of their own traditions, all the presents, just everything. And all you've done is just picked a different day. And so a lot of our advice here is going to be like that. Pick a different day, let go of the rope, and then do your thing. All right, Grant. We have one of our tips is to be flexible and communicate. Most parenting plans will have guidance on how the holidays should be split, but it's good to anticipate things like fall and winter dates change year over year, and the other parent may ask for changes. We see in our practice things happen. People get sick and live in different states, and you want to go see them, or grandma's 99 and this will be the last Christmas probably that the whole family be together. Lots of things come up like that. What can you add for how people can manage life?
Yeah, so for me, I think this is probably the two most important tips for a successful and happy holidays when co-parenting. Flexibility is really important, especially if there's going to be traveling involved. Right? All it takes is one winter storm and knocking out flights, and everything suddenly goes haywire. And if your family has a set tradition that's really important every year, and you want to make sure that your kids participate in it, make sure that you communicate that expectation to the other parent well in advance so that they understand how important this is. And by being flexible when you can be, you're just putting deposits in that goodwill bank so that when you need them down the road, they're there. And this will just help ensure that everybody has as enjoyable of a holiday season as possible.
Thank you. That's excellent advice. We have a viewer question. My ex asked me if I will allow her to take the kids out of state for Christmas this year. She gets Christmas Day, but I'm supposed to have Christmas Eve, which precedes Christmas Day, and New Year's Day this year. I want to say yes, but I also don't want to miss out on my parenting time. Any thoughts on how I should negotiate this? And we all have thoughts on how you should negotiate this. This is an excellent question, and it can be solved. And who wants to go first on a solution?
I'm happy to go first because I've done this before. Sometimes one of the keys to co-parenting is you have to give and take. I mean, if it's really important or it's something that the child is really looking forward to, then let them do it. I mean, obviously you don't want to give away all of your time, but maybe you can make it up over a different holiday or something of that nature. And like Grant mentioned, sometimes certain family traditions are really important to some family members. And I think it's important for your kids to try to honor those.
Haley, thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
We're going to try to give you an assortment, like a menu of options, and then maybe you can come up with something you can pick from this. Okay, Haley.
Exactly. And I think that this is exactly a good example of how there's no one set cookie cutter for every family. And so these kind of creative solutions, a lot of things that we've just learned from years of practice are really, you can kind of see it's varied. And so this would be a great situation where if he wants to negotiate out maybe in the future that maybe perhaps both parents have parenting time on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day in alternate years. So one has odd numbered Christmases, one has even numbered, and that alternates with Thanksgiving. If splitting that day and traveling is something that's causing some friction there. That's not a solution for everyone. I think that some parents, it's important to see the kid on Christmas Day or to split that. But that's one solution that some clients seem to be happy with, is simply alternating years.
Great. And thank you for this question. Another solution is it sounds like you're not that you're not a stickler, but you want your time, you could split the break. You could look at what the holiday is this year. You could be as specific as, oh, it's 11 days or it's 15 days. I want 7.5. You take the first week that includes Christmas, and I'll take the second half of the dates that include New Year's. So you'll basically be splitting the holidays. And to Haley's point, you could say next year, I want to go out of state. So let's split that, where let's flip it. Next year, I get the first half that includes Christmas, and you get the second half that includes New Year's. Or maybe you don't even want to go out of town, but you want to do, you want to go to the mountains with your family or something like that. So that gives you flexibility. You could do it a one-off this year where you get half, they get half, everybody's happy. Or you can say, hey, I want to go out of town sometimes. Let's institute that from time to time when we want to. So what's really important to us about having this webinar is, because we see this all day, every day, we have ideas like this top of mind, where we've seen people solve problems over and over by just kind of switching their mindset about how they're thinking about it. But when you're just going through it and it's just your daily experience, it's harder to think of a list of 10 options for how you can change how you're thinking about the holiday and still get what you wanted, which is a wonderful time and of making memories with your child, but you're not letting your blood pressure go up or getting stressed out because of how you're interacting with the other side. Now, let's go back to a tip. This is one of the tips, and Grant, you comment on this. Don't try to outbuy the other parents. Trying to buy your kids love to win them over or outshine the other can have a negative effect on the kids and the co-parenting relationship. Well, it sounds like from this tip, we're not in favor of buying the kids ponies to get them over to your house. Grant, what do you think?
Yeah, again, I think this is where, when possible, good communication with your former partner helps. Because if you're able to talk and sort of set expectations on what you all want to do with gift giving, then you aren't worried that someone is going to try and buy the affection of the children. If you don't have that situation, then I think this is an excellent opportunity for sort of a teaching moment with your children and talking about how that, material goods and gifts don't necessarily equate to love and happiness. And so I think you can approach it from a number of different angles, sort of depending upon what your relationship is with your co-parent.
And you see this in other areas of life. And for example, you can have two grandparents, the paternal and the maternal grandparent, very different. They can have different economics, different economic situations, different sensibilities. And one person could be the shopper grandparent, and the other one could be, the quality time grandparent, or the one who gives you money for scholarships and practical coats. And people manage that. You don't have seminars on how two different types of grandparents can manage to grandparent together. We allow for that. There is a space where you could allow for the other parent to be the guy who just buys stuff. He buys the newest thing that comes out all the time, the newest car, the newest whatever, wants to buy it for his kid. And you look at what your gifts and talents and skills are. I'm the present parent. You can spend $5 on a Candyland game and play it 25 times in an hour. There's so many ways to parent. You don't have to measure it by money. You measure it by what you give. In that case, you're not having to say, well, don't buy him a pony, or don't buy him this or that, because you are giving from your strength, and your children can see that. They see that all year long. So don't make Christmas into more than it has to be. Just think of other ways to look at it and be yourself, your best self with your children. They know dad buys shiny things and mom, bakes my favorite, I don't know, cupcake and lets me write in it and eat with my hands. Like, you both are bringing different things. Allow for that. Let your children see your strengths. Okay. Here's a follow-up to that. My ex has more money than I do and always tries to impress the kids with an abundance of gifts at his house. Do you suggest I communicate with him to see if we can set equal budgets, or do you think this matters? So I gave you one perspective. What we're trying to do today is give you different perspectives so you can choose from the menu. Haley, you want to answer and give some thoughts on that?
Absolutely. And so that's certainly a conversation that can be had if you have an open line of communication with the other parent, but it might be a fool's errand to always try and make everything in your houses equal moving forward, to set that budget, to try and make that Christmas at both houses completely the same for the child in hopes that that just equalizes all things for the parent. I think, April, you touched on a lot of this in what you just said, and that kind of if the other parent wants to be the Disneyland parent or wants to try and, in your perception, buy the children off, maybe you let that happen. As we all grow up and have hindsight, we understand as children what gifts are important to us from our parents, and we know that's time and memories that we create, not dozens of items at Christmas. And so I'm always balancing out picking your battles in these things. And so maybe upon the first few years of separation, that could be a helpful transition, but I would counsel my clients against pursuing any kind of strict equality between the houses because it's just not realistic.
Thank you.
You know, one of the things I've used over the years and advised clients is if you can communicate clearly, well, you can share the child's Christmas list, right? Like have the child make the Christmas list of what they want, gifts they might want, and just if the parents can communicate that way, you don't replicate things or duplicate it. That way, their child's getting what they want from a variety of sources of people who love them.
And one good point with that, children aren't making lists necessarily based on how much things cost. They can want a little Spider-Man action character that costs $10. And you could just take those items and make their day. That's what's so important about thinking out of it's not necessarily out of the box, but out of the emotional box of what we can't do anymore, but what can I do? You know, if you change your
Absolutely.
question to what can I do with what I have in front of me, you can start to make answers, come up with answers that just give you a lot more peace. Grant, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand this viewer's concerns. I also think at the end of the day that what most children value more than the shiny toy and really the memories that will last them when they're older is not what they got, but how they felt during the holidays. Was there a lot of love? Was there a lot of happiness? That is what's going to carry through. And so I think that's where parents should really focus their efforts. But again, sort of like I said before, I think if you can communicate with your former partner about this, so much the better. I think it just helps make everything go a lot easier.
Thank you. We have a viewer question someone sent in ahead of time. I don't want to give my ex a present for Christmas, but we're still all going to be in one house. What impact will this have on my child? Who wants to take that?
I don't mind taking it. I think one of the things is have the child give them a present. Go with the child and pick it out for them. Be like, hey, let's pick out something for mom or let's pick out something for dad that's meaningful from the child. And I think that just goes a long way towards teaching the child so many things about as Grant mentioned, the total experience and the love and comfort of the holidays.
Wow, that's a great solution. I didn't think of
It
that.
was. That's a great idea, Billy. That really is.
Haley, let's see if we can get 4 different ideas.
Right. Well, on one hand, I would say, right, just buy a gift to keep peace in one hand, right? If they really just don't like the idea of buying your spouse that gift and you're worried about the impact on your child, easier to buy the gift than not worry about the impact it has on your child. But fakeness generally doesn't benefit anyone. And so I really like Billy's idea of the concept because then you're not as much turning the focus on your child looking at the relationship between the two of you, but you're fostering that relationship between the child and the other parent, which is something you're going to have to continue to do after you've separated. But frankly, you're also giving your child a chance to see how people break up and having a good example of how mature, respectful people disentangle their lives that's a really good lesson too. And so if you can be that model and break up well for the kids, that's something.
And what if you could do that always, like their entire childhood? If that was just what you did, the memory and the what you would be teaching them about how you continue to care for people and how you support them and support the relationship with the other parent, even if you can't stand them. That just gets you so much I don't want to say leverage, but it'll go a long way for an act that doesn't require that much of you, except to take your child, support your child, let your child buy the gift, and let your child say, "This is from mommy and daddy." You know, and your child's like, "My dad's the best in the world. He just, no matter how my mom treated him, he would always take me to get her a gift."
And then
That's
when
a
the
great idea.
child in the future, if they ever find themselves in a situation where they're separating and at the holidays, they'll have a model of, hey, let's go buy your mom a gift. Let's go out shopping. And
Yeah.
that kind of modeling is what parenting is about.
I love it. Grant, anything you want to add?
No, I think this is all really positive stuff.
And you could, if money was an issue, you can have them make something for your mom.
Absolutely.
You could supply the construction paper and the glue or the cake box mix and some icing, and they could be like, "Look what me and dad made you." And you could go watch the game while they make it, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, we are coming up on the last few minutes. What I would like to do is, if there are things that from each of us, at least one, tips that you want to give based on what you've seen clients have to get through in terms of the holidays, what would you say? I have one. So this comes up a lot. You're sharing Christmas, and your child does not, he just woke up and he got his favorite toys. Children don't want to leave their favorite toys at noon to not see them again for like 24 hours. How do you manage that? Now, you can manage it easily if you get along and you know you're going to give them the toy and they're going to send the toy back and it's no big deal. But that's not always the case. Sometimes you have the place where when you send stuff to the other house, it's like a dead zone and you'll never see it again. And it's very frustrating. So I want to come up with solutions for how you can solve for that other than you can't take a gift. Maybe it's you can take one gift, pick one gift that you can take. And maybe you and the parent agree, okay, let's just tell them they can take one gift to each other's house. Or and that's if you can reach agreement. But if not, just one that you may never see it again, but you're giving it that kind of a Christmas gift. And you could steer them away from the expensive one. But I had a client who had their kids change clothes in the driveway for every exchange. And what it did to the child long term is what you would imagine, but he couldn't see a way past it because it was a dead zone at the other person's house. All right. So what are some big things that you see? Some tips you can give. Haley.
I would say in the holiday season, we're all already probably starting to feel it, is that things get more stressful, schedules get more packed, everyone maybe feels a little bit more on edge, which is of course always ironic because we're supposed to be happy and celebrating family. But one of my tips would be that we see a lot of tensions start to boil up this time of year because everyone really does want to make everything so special and everyone does really care about having a good holiday. And so my biggest piece of advice is always to give grace in this time of year because things and tensions are so extra turned up. The holidays add this X factor of everyone wanting perfect or everyone wanting time or everyone not having enough money. And so to be cognizant with that as we're all walking through this and navigating it with your co-parent is it's a good time to give grace.
Thank you. Grant.
Yeah, I mean, I concur 1,000% with what Haley just said. The other thing I would say is, and this is especially true if you're just sort of starting your co-parenting journey, is it gets better, it gets easier. The first few years are going to be the most challenging as everyone is readjusting to this new normal, but know that it does get better and easier as you get into this a few years down the road.
Thank you, Grant. Billy.
great answers by the people here. You know, the one thing that I think is really important to focus on is view it through the eyes of the child. As adults, we have all these things that we're worried about and schedules and all that. But like you just said, April, that one little figurine might be the thing that that kid loves the most. And it's not going to hurt for the kid to put that figurine in their pocket and take it to the other parents. Just remember to focus on it through the child and what's best for the child.
There was one more question that a viewer asked in advance that we did not touch on, so I want to touch on it real quick. They have a parent who drops the kid off on the porch and takes off and says, you know, I've got things I need to do, and just kind of leaves them there in violation of the court order, which suggests they've tried to get the court to remedy it. What solutions do we have for a situation like that? I have one. So what if you look at it like it was your brother? Like, so you know how sometimes it's hard to tell your siblings what to do, either a younger one because they're a knucklehead or an older one because they just blow you off and think you're the baby. And so imagine that your brother took your son on a wonderful outing. He loved it, and they're great friends, and you love that they have that relationship. And then he's just like, sis, I gotta go. I told you I was coming. I gotta go. And he just leaves them on the porch. What would you do? That's what I think we should consider. What would you do with that brother? You wouldn't call a court and get a protection order to keep him off your porch. You would come up with some other thing. You'd get a Ring doorbell so that you knew, so it said someone's on your porch, and you're like, that's my knucklehead brother. Hey, son, did you have a wonderful time with Uncle Bobby today? Come on in. You know, you just think of other ways to get around it. So if sometimes you can think of your ex, your knucklehead ex, in that way, you'll come up with different solutions, because you won't be coming from all the place of hurt and brokenness that could be completely on point, but you're trying to come up with ways that you can take care of your kid and do his best. So, oh gosh, we've got a few more viewer questions. You guys have like 3 more minutes?
I'm good.
Okay, so let's go to another one.
And I apologize, I've got to drop off, but I wish everyone a great holidays. And April, thank you for putting this on. This was great.
Yes, and Grant's here. If you think you need some help and we can help you, Grant's here and he can help you. Okay, Grant, take off to court. We appreciate you so much.
Bye,
and
all.
I will see you soon.
See you later.
Okay. All right. So real quick, what do I do if my child doesn't want to go with the other parent for their parenting time during the holidays? Billy.
Yeah, this may be popular, maybe unpopular, but the child has to go. The parenting plan is put in place for the best interest of the child. And this may be one of those situations where you have to use, like, I love the example you said of how you would treat your brother. Just think about how you can convey to the child how much fun they're going to have, all the positives of going, all the things. Hey, at the end of the day, children who have parents that don't live together anymore, they get 2 Christmases. And that's not lost on the kids, right? Like, they're going to be more presents over there. And so I think you just have to find a way to gently and carefully get the child to understand the importance of them being with both their parents during the holiday season.
Think of it when you dropped your kid off at daycare and they didn't want to go. And then
Yeah.
they didn't want to go the next day, and they didn't want to go the next day. And you had to go to work.
Right. Part of parenting is making your kids go places they don't want to go.
And somehow, once it gets in this arena of family law and the kid doesn't want to do it, perspective just kind of goes out the window. You're just like, oh my gosh, they're so unhappy over there. They don't want to do it. It's like, well, you have them do stuff they don't want to do all the time. And so, yeah, just
very few children are begging to brush their teeth, right? But you still have them brush their teeth.
Right.
Yeah. And you know, with those daycare situations, you drop them off, they're crying when you leave, and then the care providers tell you, oh yeah, before you got to the car, they were fine. But because we see them in such pain, and you don't trust the family anymore because you broke up, you kind of forget that. You kind of forget, he really does love his grandma and grandpa when he gets over there. They really do. They're crazy about them. He's going to have a fine time. It's some talking to the mindset work to do on yourself, because your child's safe and they will adjust. Last one, I think here, in my culture, we typically celebrate Christmas Eve more than night, where parents are open at midnight instead of the morning, but soon to be ex-spouse celebrates Christmas Day. Thoughts on how to approach this? I actually think this is kind of perfect. If one of you celebrates Christmas Eve and you open presents at midnight and the other one has Christmas Day, those are that could be your parenting schedule.
Right down the middle, right?
Yeah. Now, where I see you could bump heads is you might say, hey, but I want them to wake up. The other one wants them to wake up at their house on Christmas Day. So you just alternate it. 1 year they have Christmas until 1 year, one person has Christmas overnight and Christmas Eve overnight. And it ends at the next, what? You would start your Christmas Eve late because the other side's doing Christmas Eve. That's what you would do. Start it as late as you can stand it based on the ages of your children. So they get to open presents at 10 p.m. or something. And then they go to your house and they wake up at your house. Something like that. Billy,
realistic.
anything you want to add, or Haley?
Well, I'm just saying that's very realistic, you know, that when you've got kind of, you're not both vying for the exact same time, that makes a lot of sense.
For sure. That sounds like it solved itself, right?
Yes. Yeah, you got the tricky part of, but I want them to wake up at my house. But you can figure that out. You could just do it every other year, or you could adjust the time the same every year, just depending on what your appetite is for it. So thank you for everyone for joining us and for sending your questions. We hope this has helped you. We are at denverdivorceattorneys.com. We have more information on our website. We can get you your holiday, this holiday guide. And if you need us, we're here. So reach out, take care. Happy holidays. Thank you, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Thank you for joining us for this webinar. If you or someone you know would benefit from watching a recording of this webinar or any of our other webinars, they can be found at denverdivorceattorneys.com. Thank you, and keep a lookout for future live webinars, and I hope to see you again.